Alrighty, so for week 11, the last week before we move into our next dev projects, our dev rounds, so your dev one, this is it. So we won't have a learn together for the next code along. So for this code along that you just finished, right, you have arrow functions. So I love arrow functions, absolutely. It does take a little while, the syntax to get used to, but once you do, it's good. But it's also important, and this is why I'm assigning it for a refactor for this week, is understanding when it makes sense and when it doesn't make sense to use them, understanding the shorthand syntax. So I give you all those requirements. And the ternary operator, basically a very simple if operator, which is, I think, fun to use, and then truthy and falsy values. So what I'll have you do, which probably isn't a really big surprise for your learn together this week, is twofold. One, finish Crud, right? So if you didn't happen to get the update completely done, I'm going to give you another shot at it this week. And if you did get it done, it's just less you have to do. Okay, so create your week 11 directory, copy in your week 10, update your code to make sure you got all the Crud operations, right? So I should be able to create, use your form to input the data. I should see the data presented back to me. I should be able to delete the data and update the data. Okay, in some way. Again, I talked about this last week. It doesn't actually have to be the input data. It could just be some kind of update. And here comes the refactor. So refactor, your functions should be refactor two functions, refactor functions to be arrow functions. Use shorthand syntax arrow functions, and note in your code where this new function syntax would not be used. Like so for the most part, we should be able to use arrow functions. And if you have a case where you can't, I just want to know about it in your code. And then also implement a ternary and truthy falsy values. And we saw this, and you can pretty much take what we saw in the code along this week. But I actually found a couple of other places where I could use truthy and falsy and ternary. So that was fun. So because your code is different, you'll need to go through that. Okay, so this is worth 50 points doing all this. I do know, by the way, there has been a little bit of a hiccup sometimes on GitHack, but if you just hang out there a little while, it'll eventually render. One thing I do is I just grab my last one and update the folder rather than to generate a new one. I don't know if it helps, but that's the way I do it. So part 2, worth 25 points. And let me just show you, and then I'll come back and look at it. So what I want you to do is go ahead, and I'm going to move over to VS Code. And some of you missed this organization, so if you did miss it, make sure you get it now. Is in your private repos, there should be a dev folder that's setting at the same level as your JS Bootcamp. And inside there was your dev one. So now create one, dev underscore 0, dev underscore 1. And then for me, I copied all my files over. Of course, I changed them. And I'm going to go over my dev in the attendance this week. Okay, for week 11. So, but what I want you to do is first set up that structure, and then if you're copying over your dev 0, you can do that now. Either way, you don't have to have the files yet, but the one thing you need is a README file. So what do I want in this README file, right? And it's your markdown file. You need to write 150 words about your dev 1 plan, right? Make sure you include topics like, make sure you include, if your topic will be the same as Dev 1, how you will implement the CRUD operations in your code. So what I would want to see in this here, in the CRUD operations, like I'm gathering this user input, I'm saving this data into the local storage, I'm allowing, right? So how am I handling the create? How am I handling the read? Now in this case, you could just talk about the form for the create. But also that, the read would be that how are you rendering your array of objects into the browser, and then the update function, which we talked about last week. So I want you to give some thought to how you're going to do that. And then the delete operation, or the delete operations in your code, right? So if you're going to handle this, the D, any of these, I just want a little bit of writing about this, right? Now, this is going to be in your dev 1 in your private, but once you're done writing that, then just copy that over into your week 11. And the reason I'm having you do this step is that I want other folks to see like what you've put into your thinking about your dev 1, right? That's why I'm having you do it here. So first create it in your private repo under that dev_1. Once you're ready, you feel like it's ready for anyone to preview it, then you can copy it into your week 11. And so in your reply, what you'll end up with is 2 links. One to your rendered output from finishing Crud, and then another link for your README file. Okay. Okay, I don't think this is any different than what we've done before. Again, we're doing something a little bit different this week because we're moving into the dev. I hope this video helps you understand what you need. Have a good one.